Hey folks, welcome to Trivial Theater. I've been tasked by the Movie Apprentice to talk about my top movie faves across 10 genres. This trend has recently been making its way across the YouTube reviewer community, and it's been cool to see what other small creators have listed as their faves. But you clicked on this video to find out my go-tos, so let's get this party started. As a quick side note, my picks may not fall into traditional movie categories, but I double-checked via IMDb and they were at least distant cousins to the genre at hand. First up is one of my top genre faves, horror, and the movie is Brain Damage, directed by Frank Henenlotter. Now, I'm kinda late to the Henenlotter party, and I regret that deeply. All of his work is low-budget awesomeness, full of characters and effects that you wouldn't necessarily expect to find in movies this size. For me, it all started while reviewing Brain Damage. I expected it to be one that I kinda liked, but this was next level. The effects, characters, and the behind-the-scenes story just enthralled me. Understanding that this was a way for Henenlotter to work through his own addiction in movie terms was amazing. The allegory he uses is so outside the box, but yet incredibly understandable. It's also one of the few movies I can honestly say that I could feel. Let me explain. Because of the way it was filmed, the movie itself is as visceral and grimy as I imagine 80s New York City was. I will forever love this movie for its dark humor, unexpected horror, and of course the absolute charmer known as Elmer, who himself was a surprise, a delight, and an unexpected killer. Next up is comic book movies. I heavily considered Into the Spider-Verse because it was something so unique. The effects, the story, and the heart transcend the comic book movie genre and take it just into incredible movie territory. I also thought about Infinity War, cause damn. Or even 1989's Batman, cause it's Michael Keaton and Tim Burton. I mean, what else do you need? Ultimately though, I settled on something more outside the box that doubles as what I would call an underrated beauty. Mystery Men came out at a time when superhero movies were kind of fading. It pokes lovingly at the overblown superhero stereotypes that are just as relevant today as they were then. The idea of a hero being so evil, or just straight up desperate enough to pull one of his main antagonists from jail just to keep his sponsors was awesome. I've always thought that Mystery Men offered a look behind the curtain of the stuff we don't usually see. Even small scenes like Captain Amazing and Casanova Frankenstein discussing their little-known tricks and identities is fantastic. You could see old rivals like the Joker and Batman having that same discussion. Also, Dr. Heller's non-lethal, yet still highly effective range of weapons was hilarious. Each one of these heroes has their arc, and whether it be big or small, there was heart, some funny-ass moments, and a touch of truth about the comic book genre as a whole. This is one of those movies that always picks me up no matter how I'm feeling, and for as many times as I've seen it, there's always something new to catch. If you choose any from my list, I would highly recommend this one. Next up is a thing you'll find that connects most of my choices, and that's comedy. The Blues Brothers is just overall gut-bustingly funny to me. Dry, clever dialogue mixed with so many over-the-top iconic moments. And yet, it somehow still manages to find balance in all this total absurdity. The amount of what the fuck is strong here, but that randomness is just something I love so much. This in mind, it also features my favorite car chase, which had a massive hand in the total destruction of this mall, as well as holding the world record for destroyed cars, until a movie aptly named The Junkman beat it 2 years later. It takes place in one of my favorite cities, and overall it feels like a real love letter to Chicago, which it shows off in a sing-along of the classic Sweet Home Chicago. And speaking of music, the blues musicians featured are a who's who of classic blues tunes, from Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles to James Brown and Cab Calloway. True, there are moments that make no fucking sense in terms of the story, if there is one, but this movie has a beat all of its own, and it's well worth a watch. For sci-fi, I definitely wanted to step a little outside the normal faves. I could list off the dark beauty of Blade Runner, the masterpiece that is the original Star Wars trilogy, but I'm going with Train to Busan. Yeah, I know, zombies do fall more into horror, but several reviews I checked out listed it as sci-fi, so we're gonna go with that. This is one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen, and I've seen a fair amount. It has a lot of that Walking Dead or 28 Days Later mentality about it. The zombies are there and they play a major role, but it's the people's responses to the zombies and the situations they cause that are really on display. The makeup effects are relatively minimal, but damn do they do the job right. More than anything else, you feel for the characters. You know that most of them aren't going to survive, and when they go down, it is a bit of a gut punch. I'm not one to cry at movies, but even on multiple watchings, this one gets me every time. It runs a gambit of emotions, and that in itself is a feat. Train to Busan was my intro to South Korean movies, and I've really enjoyed the ride so far. Romance. A genre that is not precisely my thing. I can enjoy them, but they have to be something a little special for me to actively seek them out. Sliding Doors is one that does that every single time for me. It asks the classic question of what if, and it follows two distinctly different paths for its main characters. Aside from that, it's clever in the way it has its main characters be on different sides of the same places and conversations. It's an excellent and incredibly fun film. It doesn't shy from sad, but it doesn't spotlight it either. It also doesn't glorify the overly happy. It finds a great balance while showing two different scenarios in a situation that a good chunk of us have faced. Now, I'm not really good at love, but weirdly, this movie always made me feel like maybe it was possible even for someone like me. And ultimately, isn't that one of the points of a romantic movie? So for the animation genre, I went back and forth from Coraline to Inside Out to Oliver and Company, but the one that simultaneously freaked the shit out of me and enthralled me as a kid was The Secret of Nim. Now this is a bit of a weird one, and it can leave you scratching your head as to how it was made for kids. Like An American Tail, which is another fave, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The story and the visuals are moody and dark, and there are moments that are poop your pants scary. But this movie drew me as a kid. I wore out the library's copy, renting it over and over. Even though I didn't understand a lot of the greater context, it never felt patronizing. It stayed with me as I grew and figured out what it all meant. Don Bluth, who did both this and An American Tail, has a unique way of telling stories, and I'm glad I was able to watch these in his heyday. My choice for adventure was another hard one. I could have picked Lord of the Rings, Goonies, or The Princess Bride, but I landed on the one that made me fall in love with the movie-making process from an early age. The adventure of this one isn't across continents, but from the real world to the surprisingly dangerous, yet completely hilarious cartoon plane. Another aspect of the adventure was figuring out how the hell they did half the stuff they did without the CGI that we know so well today. Who Framed Roger Rabbit sets the standard, at least in my mind, for what a crossover between live action and animation can achieve. The bringing together of classic film noir and all the cartoon characters that I loved as a kid was the best thing I could have asked for. The ink and paint club scene alone was just fantastic. The talent it took to combine the real world and cartoon elements in such a seamless way has blown my mind ever since I was a kid. I learned all that I could after that, from the art of old school Foley to finding a real love of the classic films that inspired Roger Rabbit. And then there's Bob Hoskins. Damn, the physicality and range he brings to the role is astonishing. It's beautiful, hilarious, and something that can never be topped. Drama covers a lot of territory, but I had to put one in there from one of my favorite directors. The director would be Alfred Hitchcock, and the movie is Rope. Although not his most well-known, it's certainly one of his most ambitious. The idea was to make it appear as one singular shot by filming 10-minute segments with cuts between focusing on either people's backs or moving to stationary items. The production achieved this with movable walls and actors with really good memories and a ton of patience. Hitch didn't drop his standards in favor of an ambitious idea, at one point redoing several segments because the sunset wasn't the right color. In addition to its unique filming challenges, Rope is known for its macabre opening scene, which involves a strangling, and a controversial subplot involving an implied homosexual relationship between the two male leads. Now, for the late 40s, that was damn near unheard of in mainstream cinema. In addition to all of this, Rope is just a really good movie. It's 80 minutes of conversation set in 2 rooms, but it holds you in suspense the entire time. I had about 4 that could have fit into action, but Edgar Wright had to be represented with a film that hits me on a ton of levels. Baby Driver is a shit ton of things. Heist movie, suspenseful thriller, indie love story, and of course kick-ass car-focused action movie. The use of sound, in the score, in sound effects, and as a plot device is just amazing to me. The car shots are intense and so interesting. The acting, although over the top, ranges from fiery to funny in a way that only Edgar Wright can achieve. This felt like such an outside-the-box take on a heist movie, and I kinda love it. The open of this film tells you so much in visuals, and displays the cheek that Wright does so well in every film he does. Above and beyond that, this movie has personal meaning. There was a time when I kinda lost my love of movies. I was in a massive pit and I really didn't know how deep I had fallen. Baby Driver, and all the stuff that it brings with it, was the first movie that I really, truly enjoyed in years. It was the ignition that got me back on the road to loving movies, and ultimately, it's what brought me here today. I love all of Edgar Wright's movies, but Baby Driver will always be something incredibly special because of that. The one commonly difficult genre to nail down seems to be pretty consistently westerns, and I can't say I had the easiest time. And while my western genre pick is more comedy than western, there are enough fake small-town storefronts and horses to fill a couple movies. That film is Blazing Saddles. Now when you think Mel Brooks, this is one of the first ones that pops to mind. It's endlessly quotable, funny as fuck, and tells the timeless message of small-town folks not necessarily being the most progressive, as well as being just a tad thick. Cleveland Little is brilliant, and Gene Wilder, Madeline Kahn, and Harvey Korman round out a cast that hits damn near every line perfectly. Mel Brooks plays the governor in a way that feels very truthful to modern politicians. The humor is quick-witted and for my money is as good now as it was then. So those are my 10 picks across 10 genres. Thanks for hanging on through that kind of eclectic ride. Now it's my turn to pick a few reviewers to share their faves, but understand that there is no requirement to do this. It's just a fun thing to do if you feel like taking part. If you take nothing else from this vid, please make sure to sub to all these incredible folks because their content is absolutely fantastic. You'll find all their links in the description below. First up is the Hellbound Horror Show. Seth has such a great mix of humor, trivia, and horror in everything he does. Right now he's going through the horror movies of 1981, and I didn't realize how much horror variety there was during that year. Next up is Homeless Movies. John gives secondhand movies a second chance to be appreciated, and his ability to make light of some truly bad movies like Cool Cat Fights Coronavirus and Manos the Hands of Fate are incredibly fun and something you should not miss. Jacob Anders Reviews is just the most fun you'll ever see in a movie reviewer. He covers a lot of lesser known movies and has a tremendous podcast that you don't want to miss. Nick from Movie Emporium is a way chill guy that knows more about movies than I could ever hope to. He covers the whole range of films, and I always walk away with something new from damn near every review. Last but not least is J-Buck Studios. Jared puts out a wide variety of reviews done in a crazy fun style that matches his personality. He covers all kinds of movies through his reviews and podcast with a massive smile and probably a costume or two. Make sure to check out all these incredible reviewers, drop a sub if you like what you see, and thank you so very much for watching.